Hello, this is Lori Lamonto. Welcome to Courageously Change, Mojo, Find Your Mojo. Today's topic is going to be on conflict and what happens actually psychologically in the brain. So, I've been doing my own research again on trying to understand some of my clients, understand myself, because there is a brain psychology around outbursts or your neuroreceptors, which is what it's called in the brain, connecting and firing. A lot of the time, what this is you almost can like see yourself from above. I don't know if you've ever had that happen where you might feel dismissed or you might hear a tone of voice or scan the atmosphere and you feel that your nervous system has now just gotten activated. That place in the brain that it's getting activated is the amygdala, and then it goes into the hypothalamus. And once it gets activated, your brain and your amygdala and hypothalamus go into fight or flight mode. Now, we know as creatures and beings, when we were in war and had predators and we really had things to be in danger, the amygdala and the hypothalamus was a good thing to have because it would be a threat. We're physically in danger, we feel threat, and your adrenaline, the cortisol, your heart racing, all this part of your nervous system is supposed to get activated. However, when we are now in the sense of conflict and upbringings and different family systems or different communication styles or emotional regulation, this all looks different because we are not so much into a war or into a crisis like predators, but our brain still gets activated if we hear a tone different, a walk different, a shuffle different, if we feel dismissed, if we feel devalued, if we feel misunderstood, okay? And it's within like milliseconds, okay, that this firing can happen in the amygdala and hypothalamus. Now, that cortisol and that adrenaline now makes you maybe pop a lot of stuff out of your mouth towards someone, and you're saying things and you're almost looking down at yourself saying, what am I doing? Why am I acting this way? Okay? And your neuroreceptors are, you know, firing. It's like this feedback loop. It just keeps looping and looping. And that person then gets triggered, whoever you're possibly having this conflict with. They're now having a feedback loop because you now have made them feel not safe and they feel insecure and they feel threatened. So now this feedback loop is going back and forth. And it's very, complicated to end it once it's started. Okay. Well, in this idea of the fight, flight, or freeze that I'm talking about, our prefrontal cortex, which is our executive functioning, our reasoning, our decision making, it partially shuts down. It partially can't think clear. So you are even in yourself in a fog saying, I can't believe I'm acting this way. How come I'm acting this way? What am I doing? Why am I behaving this way? And then why are they behaving that way? It's because it's been hijacked all in your brain. Okay, we can go into the emotional dysregulation, but I want you to understand the brain today because there is a way to kind of interrupt or, slow the process down, okay, that you allow your nervous system to communicate. Most of us know, I mean, sometimes it's in milliseconds, so you didn't catch it. But the goal now would be, okay, if I want to change this behavior, I can tell my jaw gets tight. I can tell my eye twitches. I can tell my heart rate gets up, the adrenaline, the cortisol, all is popping and it's getting up and it's activated. And your whole nervous system should be communicating to you that you're about to act out or have a explosion or a temper or say something you regret. You should be able, especially at this age when we're older, to be able to say, I better go for a walk. I better interrupt this because it's better to catch it than to get in that feedback loop where you're constantly feeding each other this adrenaline. And it's a false threat. It's really just about the conflict and not being in agreement. And there is obviously better ways to negotiate and navigate conflict. Conflict is good for growth. Conflict is good to say, how do I have an open mind? How am I willing to grow in this? But at that moment, when we feel defensive, we feel under attack, we feel criticized, whatever the words that come out of someone's mouth that just hits your pride and your ego, literally, you should be able to notice your body now and say, I better go for a walk. I better take a shower. I need to catch this because I know I'm going to have regret later. And I know my brain is falsely firing this threat, okay? And that I don't actually have to react and respond the way that I always do. I mean, a lot of times we would use the word react, don't listen to react, but listen to respond. Okay. But if your reaction is typically to lash out, you want to start correcting that and feeling it first. Take a time out, walk, correct your thought process, get out of the fog, get out of that immediate knee jerk, and think twice to respond and communicate correctly. Who knows how that'll turn out in the beginning because you're in a learning curve. But we do know conflict's going to happen, and we know the amygdala is going to falsely fire danger, threat, insecure, not safe. Okay, I need to defend, I need to attack, I need to flee, I need to fight, I need to freeze something, and it's not accurate. So take your time to process it, feel it in your body, because you will have regrets if your prefrontal cortex is not receiving partially how to do this the correct way. Okay? So this is more about taking the time to know and be aware of your body under conflict. Thank you. Have a good day.